home page, and we're going to come in here and get into Canvas so that we can look at our assignment and go into the project, the group project description. Down here in the bottom of this is a link to the project description, and you need to be sure you read and understand all this, of course, because this project is going to be a big chunk of your grade due at the end of the semester. And you see down here there's a bunch of files you need to make sure you download and read. Of course, you need to be connected to the library to get articles directly from the a lot of articles that way. But here's the link to WEAP, and this is going to be what we're basing our project on, so be sure you read through this as well and understand how it works, or understand what it's all about. And here you can click this link to download it. Now this, as it says in the project description, you have to join a forum, which is like a discussion group that they use to track users. And when you sign into the forum, you can join right here and fill this all out. And of course, you can list that you're doing a class project at the University of South Florida. And once you fill all this out, you'll get a login confirmation in your email. And here I've done this already, so I can come in here and log in. And then once you get into you can download the software. And so when you click on that link and download it, you'll get this install file. And you've done this before, I'm sure, 1,000 times, where you install the program and agree to all the security, so forth, and just run through it to install it on your desktop. And you'll get this little program here. And when you start it, it's going to ask you to register, but we're just going to use the evaluation model, so you do not need to register. So you can just hit no here, and it opens up with their Weeping River Basin. And if you got that far, then you're ready to start using the back here again with the WEAP model. After you've downloaded the files, I guess the first file you downloaded should have been this user's guide. This is going to be a lot of help, because you can see 400 pages, so it's very detailed and gives you it's a great reference to finding anything you need about the model if you have any troubles, or you want to see different options and tricks for using this model. This will be a lot of help. But also we also downloaded the tutorial, and that's where we're going to start today. Once again, this is going to be a lot of help for anybody that wants to see all the different options and scenarios you can do with this model. But we're going to jump down here to WEAP in 1 hour, and this is the section that we're going to cover or go through. And the first thing they talk about is about creating a blank area. You will see that it opens up to the Weeping River Basin, like I said before. Now, to create your own area, you can come over here and click on Create Area. and then you can make your own area, whatever you'd like it to be, and start it out blank. And this will first off give you an option for setting the boundaries for your area. And for me, I'm going to go in here to Florida because that's the area I want to use. I guess I'll come up here and set the area again. See if I can make it a little tighter to what we had seen in the SwiftMud maps. So now that's setting the area that we had. So right here we set area, and that's pretty close to the area that we saw on the SwiftMud maps. The next thing that they cover in this manual is, well, here they used the example that they used was a different area. They talk about using locking it, which I didn't do. And you can if you want to. But once again, it goes through the process of setting your boundary areas. And here they zoomed in over here in Africa. And that was the sample that they used. Once again, to modify it, just like I did a second ago, where you go into that generals menu over here and you set area boundaries, and that's what I did a second ago. And now the next step that they do is they talk about how you can add different files, GIS raster files and vector files. As I noted previously, those are all available on the SwiftMud websites, and you can download shapefiles from there. But that's not what we're going to do today. Of course, you want to make sure that you always save your area. So it's always good to get in the habit of clicking save on your file, because otherwise you'll lose the work you're working on. Now this next piece, they talk about using the tutorial. And so for this example, we're going to use the tutorial that they gave us, because as I said before, we're not going to register this. We just want to use the simple free data that they provide, since we won't be able to import and put everything that we need for Tampa Bay, because it'll be too much data to get for free. But if you open this tutorial, it starts out with this piece of river and this city, and that's what we're going to use to start out this sample. WEAP tutorial, and like I said, we had opened the tutorial file, and the first thing we're going to do is set the parameters for the year that they're doing here. So you go into the general data, just like it says here. You go into the general data and change your time steps, and it's set here for 2000 to 205. And I guess what we could do is adjust this a little bit so we can see both at the same time, and that might make it a little bit more convenient for us to review things, put it together. So we're adjusting this to 2000 and 205 and 12, and based on the calendar year. And it starts in October. And then we hit close. And the next thing we want to do is make sure we keep the SI units. You can once again adjust those here. And of course they have all the details for all the units throughout the system that we will be using for this model. You can adjust them as you need to. The next thing that they cover here is another good feature that makes it simple for the program, is saving different versions. Of course, you always want to make sure you save your files, but the versioning allows you, it'll save different versions of the file so that you can step back if you needed to at any time to different versions of the same scenario, different versions of the, well, actually it looks like they have some different versions here where you can go back and see what has been done. Yeah, see, this is a different version, but I'm going to go back to our blank one that I just made. So that's what we're going to end up with, but we're starting with the blank version. So of course it's always good to make sure you save your files. It does create or store them for you. The one thing you want to remember is that if it fills up your disk space, it'll start cutting them. So it's good to know that. And so that's all we're going to do right now. Our next section, we're going to draw in the river, and back here in the model program you click on the word river and you hold it down with your mouse and carry it over to where the river is, and you start at the head or the highest point in the river. We're essentially drawing in the river. The CAD file or the GIS file is really only a background, and these symbols here are actually what the program uses to simulate the river. And if you notice, I'm not following it really close here. It is important that you do follow it closely, because it will use these dimensions or this distance to calculate the retention time and the water flow and everything else that the program uses. Like I said, the CAD file is the background, and you follow it all the way down to the end and double click when you get to the end, and then it allows you to put in your name for your what you just entered. And now you can see the new line that you added here, and if you right click on it, then you can edit it. Like right now I'm going to move the label so it's easier to see it. So now this is a graphical representation, and you see I could have done a lot tighter in areas, and like I said, it's important to do that to get an accurate flow of this. The manual does a pretty good job of explaining this, talking about how to lay it out and so forth. Once again, what's important is, as opposed to upper left and lower right, that you're starting at the highest point of the river and ending at the lowest point of the river. That might not always be left and right, of course. So you're starting up in the mountains and ending down in the ocean. But the manual is really good at explaining how this is done. We just wanted to make sure you understood everything. Even naming the river and moving the label to get it where you want. So that's all we're going to do in this again, and we're going to edit a river and enter data into this program. And once again, you can right click on it and see the list data files, or which you can enter in for data on the river. We're going to start with a head flow right at the beginning. And you notice how it jumps to the data screen where you can see all the different data that's available for this. They do talk about other ways of getting into it here in the where you can click on the menu itself, which to expand it and to open it that way. It seemed more complicated to me, but that's okay. Giving you different options of how to edit your data. And once again, we're going to enter monthly time series for the head flow, which is what they've provided here in the example. So here's their data sample. And so back over here at our program, you can right click on the river and see there's your monthly time series. And then you open that up and it allows you to put in this data. And so you can come up here and type in the numbers just as they have listed there. And I use just the arrow key to tab down to the next field, which is convenient and quick. And see, now we have a plot of it as well. And as with all windows, you can adjust it so you can see it should match. See, it's got the same. Of course, you can make it a lot smaller too if you want. I could almost make it the exact same size if I wanted to. But it's once again very simple, direct way of entering data, and you can put this into all the different segments of your river. At this time, I only have one in there. So it gives you a histogram of flows. And then you can come back over here to get back to the schematic. So now I entered that data, which was the next process that they covered in the tutorial. For the next section of our tutorial, after we put in the river, and now we're going to put in the demand for the site. So the first thing we're going to do is put in demand for the city. Like I said before, this is a graphic, and we need to put on the symbols for the model to represent. So you press down on the demand with your mouse and slide it over, and then drop it where you want it for the city, and then create the label. and we want to keep the priority at 1. And so then we can do the same thing we did before, where we can edit this, like move in the label so we can see it. And then we can edit the data. And we're going to start here right on top with the annual activity level. And see, this is what's driving the demand for how the water is used. And so back here in the tutorial, they talk about editing the data and the activity level, just like I showed you. And so now we're talking about the demand for people. And so just like they say here, we're going to click on this value and change the units to people, because we're talking about a per capita water use. So now for this example, this tutorial talks about 800,000 people starting in the year 2000, which is what we put in for our start time. So we put in 800,000 there. And then the next value that they put in is the annual water use rate of 300 per year. So we go over here to the annual water use rate, and you put in, I double clicked on it so you can put a calculation, but I have a real number, so I'm going to put in the number instead of calculating it. And then the last value that we put in for this is the consumption rate, which is how much of the water they actually keep on site or use, as opposed to how much outflows through the wastewater and so forth. And so now that I've put that one in, I can go back here to the schematic, and we're going to do another one and put in the demand for agriculture as they have outlined here. And once again, you press down on the symbol, carry it over with your mouse, and drop it here outside of the city, because it's usually where it belongs. And so we have our new label, and it's the same priority. And so now we can edit this again. This symbol's okay, so we're just going to put in the activity level. Now when we're talking about agriculture, we're talking about an area. So what they have listed here in the example is using 100,000 hectares. So you come in here again and you click on this, and this is changing to an area, and that's where we can pick that, and we put in 100,000 here, 2, 3, and they have the annual water use rate of 3,500, so we put this in at 3,500. And then back in the tutorial, they also talk about a monthly variation of water use, because as you know, different seasons have different rates of consumption based on the plants and what they grow, so forth. So we're going to go in here, the monthly variation, and this is using the time series wizard again. See, just like they wrote here. And so you right click on the agriculture, and we've got a monthly time series, and once again we can just type in the numbers that they have here. You can see here that it starts in April, so the first 3 are 0, So this is a 0, 0, 0, and then it goes 5, and then May and June are 10, so this is 5, and then 10, is that right? Yeah, and then June is 10, so we go to June is 10, and then July is 20, and August is 30, so July is 20, August is 30, and then we go 25 for September, and then 0 again. So this is 25, and the last 3 are 0. Once again, we can compare the graphs to see how, if we missed anything, just in this example, it's good to check and see if we got all the numbers in there correctly. And they all look pretty close, almost the same size even. So then you can finish that. And the last value that you enter is the consumption again. So when they spray the field, you have a value of 90% consumption. So that's really good. That, once again, a calculation that we don't need to use right now. So that was the last value there. And we go back to the schematic, and we've got those both in there. So we finished this next sample, or the next step. Ready for the next part of our tutorial here? We're going to connect the demand with the supply. So in this section, we're going to be using transmission links, as shown here. And yeah, that might be better. So here, I come over here and I hit transmission link, and now I pick it up and press down with the mouse and hold it, and then slide it over here to the river, and it's going to be from the river to the city. And that's the first transmission link. It's active, and it's going to have a preference of 1. Now I'm going to do the same thing with agriculture. So I pick another transmission link, and now this time I'm going to be downstream of where it goes to the city, further downstream. So that's where I'm going to let go of the mouse, and then I'm going to double click where I want it to end. And so that's the transmission link for the agriculture. Once again, it's going to have 1 as a preference. So now the next piece that we're going to do is the return flows. And so once again, we do the same thing where we find the return flows, and we drag and release like they say here. And so the return flow, you press down on it and you carry it over to the city, and you let go of it, and then you want to come down here to the river, and you double click again. So that's the return there. And we do the same thing for agriculture. Press it down, slide it over, release, go to the river, and double click. So now those are the 2 return flows. Now we also need to define the return flow values here, the return flow routing. So that's editing this piece that we just added. So now we want to modify this, and this is the edit data, return flow routing. I was looking at the flow. I was like, where is the number? I didn't see it. So now we go in here, and we're at flow routing, and we're going to make this 100%. And it's the same thing for the agriculture. That's another way of getting to it. Like I said before, you have the data here in the data chart. You can go back to the schematic and do the same thing. So now we have the return flows set. So that's it for this next section. So piece of the tutorial where we're going to check the model, and in this process it's really easy. The first thing we do is run the results. So that is as simple as clicking on the result button right here. So you click on the results and it's going to rerun the results, and now you have some data. So first thing we want to look at, like they have here, is the tables, and we want to check for the water demand. So that is down here in the water demand, and then we're gonna click on the annual totals just like they say here. Yeah, see annual totals. And so what they calculated for this example was 350 and 240. So 350 and 240. So it looks like I have it right for my raw model run. So I was able to check it. And see, they have the whole data set here if you wanted to zoom in and see all of it. Yeah, see, I have the same numbers, so that's another confirmation. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at other different results. Like you can click through the different views of the data, and you can check different scenarios or different examples of what you can get with your results. And you can also, like the first one we saw here, you can also look at a graph, which is another way of looking at it. See, like they have here, looking at the monthly averages. So instead of looking at the total, we're going to look at the monthly values, and that's another way of looking at it. And so that's important to be able to review the different data sets. So now we're really ready to start doing scenarios and doing different results. Like we said at the very beginning, you can save different versions. So I can come in here and I can save a new version for where I am now. And so that'll be the most recent version that I have here, which is today's date and the time that I just saved it. So that's what I just did now. And now let's say, for example, I wanted to go into the city data and change, let's just change the population. So you can go in here to your city data, and you can also do it from over here. So you can go in to here and demand, and there's my city, and this is where I put in the value last time. And let's say that the population doubled. So what's that? 8 goes to 16. So now I've just doubled my population. And you notice here that they do have other values that you can adjust to test different options, different scenarios. So now we go back to the model or the schematic, and we hit results, and now we recalculate again, and now we have new data. So let's just see how much this annual total changed, because that's what we have over here in their example. And so I doubled the population. So let's see what happened. Oh, did I pass it? Oh, 10. Yeah, I did pass it. 11, I'm going the wrong way. So let's see what they have in this example or in their tutorial. Now that I doubled the population, so the total value here is now, oh yeah, see, the city value doubled. So that's pretty simple and direct. Oops, how it's doubled. So that's one scenario that I've done right there. And now I can compare the scenarios. And that's another option that you have in this program. So